Banger! Coming up on the prelims, we have Argentinian Ninja. It's Guido Cannetti taking on the MMA Lab's own Mario Bautista. And if somebody in Argentina or Latin America haven't made a movie about this guy's life, you better acquire the rights. Like, go out there right now by www.guidocannettislifestory.com. And you're probably, like, you know, fixing for a payday because this guy right now, at age 42 last year, picked up 2 giant wins and sent 2 guys packing from the UFC. He beat Chris Moutinho by standing TKO. He beat Randy Costa by submission early on in the fights in the first round. And Guido, the coach at Our Town MMA back home in Argentina, just continues to put it on. I'll throw it up there, a clip of Guido going out there, lifting weights, kicking the crap out of his coach's, guard. He's going out there, hitting the heavy bag, and then doing it all over again. Guido is a physical specimen at 43.
I would give up 6 inches of my height to look like him when I'm 43.
And the craziest part about it is, Matt, we touched on this in videos. At 34, Guido was on The Ultimate Fighter. He lost 2 fights on The Ultimate Fighter. You lose 1, usually go home. He lost 2, and they went, you know what? We like this guy. They put him on the finale, which was UFC 180. He lost that fight. He loses 3 fights in a row, and they went, hey, you want to fight at UFC 190? Yeah, and then he goes out there and wins. If you consider it, Guido Cannetti, after the age of 34, started off at 2-5 in the UFC, and none of the 2 guys that he beat stuck around. So it was just crazy to see that. The last 3 losses to Guido going into this win streak. Marlon Berry gets submitted.
One of the best fighters in the world.
Bakary Dana, where Guido showed those kicks at the start and then he got knocked out. And a split decision loss to Mano Martinez, where Guido started out really well, which was kind of a story of his career, and then he faded as the fight went on. And Mano had the extenuating circumstances. Exactly. His coach had just passed away.
I thought Mano won that fight, to be fair. I don't know what you would score.
They shuffled it, but for Guido, the last 2 wins over Chris Moutinho, over Randy Costa, giant wins. And the other part about Guido's overall career arc and the resurgence is he's been an underdog in every single UFC fight, which he is in this one as well. So it's just crazy to see all of this. He rallied Argentinians around him. And the craziest part about it is right now, think about Argentinian MMA. Guido Cannetti's 43 and having success. Santiago Ponzinibbio is in the later stages of his 30s. He's having success. The younger fighters like Francisco Prado, Eileen Perez, and then, of course, we did see it here recently, and it was just, last weekend we had a young Argentinian coming in, former champ, who did not have success. Guido's leading the charge. You think about athletes after 40, Matt, and I think of the rare circumstances like
Yoel
Romero, Tom Brady, Nolan Ryan,
Brandon
Guido
Johnson.
Cannetti. Like, these are guys after 40 having success. So good for Guido Cannetti.
Fun fact, I have a friend who recently went to Buenos Aires, Argentina, said it was the most beautiful place they have ever been to and that the people were nothing but lovely. So shut up, Buenos Aires. Here's the thing about Guido Cannetti, though. It feels like at 43, he just realizes what he is at this stage of his career.
I think he always did.
But yes, he has to come in with a big storm, but you kind of realize that at 43. So I guess you're right, but he's more set in his ways. I think that's fair to say. Like, if he's going to go out there and get a finish win, it's probably going to be in the first round. Is he going to fall off after that first round? Yes, I think that's fair to say. And Mario Bautista, because I feel like we spent a lot of time talking about Guido Cannetti, Mario Bautista is an interesting fighter, because recently you would probably think that the grappling is at the forefront of his game, because he has looked really good with the submissions as of late, but this guy has big power in his hands when he is able to land it, and I really like some of the boxing technique of Mario Bautista, but he reminds me of a lot of guys who are fresh to the NBA. You guys know how much I love basketball. He reminds me a little bit of like a Jalen Green. Like, he's great offensively, but gives up a little bit defensively because of it. Mario Bautista, when he's throwing his combinations, he's not a guy who, when he throws the right hand, keeps the left hand tucked by his face like a Dustin Poirier or like even a Jalen Turner, who's a great boxer in his own right. Mario Bautista is a guy who will throw some flurries a la almost Cody Garbrandt, and that does leave him open in some of his fights, but that's why I do like this test for Mario Bautista. He's looked good as of late, but he still needs to really solidify himself as a legit contender in the division, and I'm not saying beating a guy like Guido Cannetti is going to really prove you as such, but that's a good win to have on your resume.
And if you look at it for Bautista, he comes into the UFC and takes on Corey Sandhagen. And it was a wild first round, like a quick takedown, and then Sandhagen drops him, gets a takedown, Sandhagen gets a finish. But a fight of the night against Jinsu Son, a performance bonus against Miles Johns, where he's the underdog and he knocked him out.
Johns is good.
Then he gets finished by Trevin Jones, which is wild, just where Trevin Jones is at in his career. He beats Jay Perrin, beats Brian Kelleher, beats Benito Lopez. Those all last year for Bautista. So he is absolutely rolling. And for Cannetti, like if you just threw up a highlight tape, if they wanted to list 3 good things about Guido Cannetti, I'll list 3. Roundhouse kick to the body, inside leg kick from southpaw, lead hook, and those are the things that Guido does well.
Handsome for 43.
And you can take those to the bank. For Bautista, it's boxing combinations, utilizing his 69-inch reach, which might sound weird because he doesn't have a much longer reach than Cannetti. But with Bautista, it's a long jab to set up the right cross, or he throws it from an overhand position. And Bautista can be lights out with his own grappling. And you know the MMA lab for Sean O'Malley that we'll touch on later. You know him for, of course, Benson Henderson, who has a fight this week over with Bellator. I love a smooth Benson Henderson fight. But for Bautista, it's all the parts and parcels to his game, and then mixing in the power shots, not leading with the power shots like a guy like Cannetti will tend to do. But when you're 43 and you know what your muscles are like, you go out there and you shoot the lights out. So I love this fight.
Like, I'm 24 and I'll play basketball sometimes and feel sore the next day. I don't feel old by any means age-wise, but I still don't feel like I used to. So I couldn't imagine being in the UFC at 43.
Guido Cannetti probably gets diamond hard when he goes on the UFC's
excuse
when you look at the all-time ranks, because Cannetti 5th all-time in bantamweight strike accuracy at 55.5%. Guido Cannetti just bringing the bacon home for Argentina.
But you don't need that blue pill.
He's a giant underdog in the matchup, which actually, before we started taping, I write them down individually, so I don't look at the odds, and I went, wow, I can't believe he's that big of an underdog. Bautista, a giant favorite. We have a look at the topology votes. Matt, surprised to us they are to you. Sometimes Bautista gets clipped in the first round. That's why it kind of weirds me out. I'm going to say over, under. If they're that crazy, I'll say 85% Bautista. They're probably still over. Oh, wow. So 645 total votes, 96% Bautista, 56% by submission. For the 4% that have Cannetti, 40% by knockout. Cannetti against Moutinho. Goes out there, clips him, wobbles him. Moutinho back up against the fence, and not that long before, he had the O'Malley loss. It was supposed to be a reset for Moutinho, taking on an older guy on a 3-fight losing streak. It was not that. Then, Cannetti goes out there against Randy Costa. Costa, decent favorite in the matchup. Costa starts with the strikes. Cannetti, inside leg kick, body kick. And then, just like the fight with Terrence McKinney and Fares Ziam, it's a leg kick that then Costa gets wobbled. Cannetti just rushes, jumps on the back, no hook rear naked choke with Cannetti like a younger brother on the back, just like way up, and he was really far ahead on that choke, but he gets the rear naked choke, gets the tap, Costa out of the UFC. So Cannetti looking to move forward on all of that. I think Bautista has all of the skills that you see out of a guy like Cannetti. Turned up, the youth factor on his side. It doesn't matter. Age is but a number for a guy like Guido Cannetti. He tends to slow down as the fights go on, though, historically. So for me, I like the reservedness of a guy like Mario Bautista, though you will see those blitzes, those crazy flurries. And the thing about Bautista is, even in the fights where he doesn't win by flying knee knockout, he likes to set it up and then throw it as well.
Exactly.
So you have to look out for the flying knee knockout out of a guy like Bautista. But I'll take his steadiness over, again, and I've said it a couple times so far, the peaks and valleys out of a guy like Cannetti.
This is what I like out of Cannetti. And honestly, shout out to you, because I feel like you called
I've been hot on Cannetti in every fight.
Yeah, you've been right on him more often than not. But I think it is fair to say, this is a step up in competition that Guido Cannetti has probably deserved. But he was in a pretty good spot, just kind of being that bottom feeder in the division. Just, hey, if a guy seems to be on his way out, we're not really sure about him as a prospect. You fight Guido, and if you beat him, he can stay. If you lose to him, you're not really around. I don't think Mario Bautista is that guy by any means. I think he has shown that, hey, the Trevin Jones fight was just an off night for him, and his skills are very high level. That's the thing about Bautista. If he hadn't shown the submission ability that he recently has, maybe you could see a world where Guido could be able to go out there, wrestle him early, get him tired, then make it interesting on the feet. But Bautista is such a talented striker, and with his own submission ability, that I do like Mario Bautista in the match.
And I said this about Brennan Allen when he was taking on Andrea Muniz. Lots of success against southpaws at the UFC level. For Mario Bautista, they might not list them as exact southpaws, but Corey Sandhagen, southpaw. Now, I know he lost that fight, and he lost it in the first round. Glimpses. Jay Perrin, switch fighter. Brian Kelleher, switch fighter. Lopez, Benito Lopez, and that was the last win off a really long layoff. Southpaw fighter, switch fighter as well. And a true southpaw was Trevin Jones, where Bautista did get finished, and that's where it kind of peters off a little bit. But a really good fight, Matt. Two high-level guys and high-volume guys, and they really like to burn hot in the first round, too, so you guys should really enjoy this. Both of us going with MMA Lab's own Mario Bautista to get the win. I can't wait for it. Maybe I'm the most excited person in the entire world for Bautista Cannetti. You know I'm excited. But some big time fights in this division. In that main event, Jan versus Dvalishvili. Can't wait for it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.